Tanme Dharma Bhitang Shrestha Stanam Nideshtum Arhasi Deva Niyato Vatsya Atishtam Ste Nushasanam
Tanme Dharma Bhitang Shrestha
Tanme Dharma Bhitang Shrestha
Stanam Nideshtum Arhasi
Tanme
Yatraiva Niyato Vatsya Atistam Ste Nusasanam
Tun or tut? Tut, therefore. Me, Dharma Bhitam, of all the protectors of religion. Shrestha, O chief. Stanam, place. Nirdeshtum, fix. Arhasi, may you do so. Yatra, where. Eva, certainly. Niyataha, always. Vatsye, can reside. Atishtan, permanently situated. Te, your. Anushasanam, under your rule. Translation purport by Srila Prabhupada. Therefore, O chief amongst the protectors of religion, please fix some place for me where I can live permanently under the protection of your government. So as you may know, this of course is Kali speaking to Maharaj Parikshit. Maharaj Parikshit has stopped Kali in his nefarious activities and is about to punish him severely with death penalty. The death penalty. And Kali is surrendered. Now he's surrendering to Parikshit Maharaj for protection. Please give me some shelter. Somewhere where I can reside. Purport. The personality of Kali addressed Maharaj Parikshit as a chief amongst the protectors of religiosity because the king refrained from killing a person who surrendered unto him. And this is an interesting point which could raise some questions. I mean, if a murderer surrenders to the king, does the king put him to death or not? Good question. A surrendered soul should be given all protection, even though he may be an enemy. We see this in warfare, that when an enemy, generally speaking, of course, it's not always that they follow the rules, but generally when an enemy surrenders, he's given protection. What form of protection? But protection. He's not shot dead, put it like that. Maybe he's put in a camp or somewhere, but he's given some form of protection. His life is spared. He put the white flag up or whatever it is. That is the principle of religion. And we can just imagine what sort of protection is given by the personality of Godhead to the person who surrenders unto him. Not as an enemy, but as a devoted servitor. And we see sometimes, well, was a nice example on that. When Krishna, there was this one king, his name was Pondraka. Pondraka. You can read him in Krishna book, King Pondraka. And he was, of course, enemy of Krishna. Enemy. And he was saying that you, Krishna, you are the imitation, I'm the real one, I suggest now, Krishna, you give up all your, your disc and your various, marks and insignias and what have you. Surrender unto me, and otherwise, I will kill you. You will be your life will be come to an end. So Krishna laughed and gave him a few interesting responses, calling him. This is all by mail. Now we have social media. People do it on the social media now all the time, accusing each other. So Krishna said, accused me of being like a croaking frog. Yes, I will certainly give up my disc for you. My disc I will not surrender, but I will certainly give it up for you and sever your head with it. So anyway, Krishna went off to Kashi where Pondrika was hanging out. And Pondrika came out to challenge Krishna from the city, and he didn't surrender. He was enemy of Krishna. The enemies of Krishna, and so Krishna, of course, finished him off with his disc. What was the example? Was it Hiranyaksha and Lord Varaha? He said, either I will die. Kshatriya, either they die, they don't surrender like that. They don't give up their lives. They fight to the death. They don't surrender. They don't back out usually. You either die with my disc, or I will die and lie down on the battlefield. Their surrender, their duty is a little different. But in this case, normally a Kshatriya would never do that. He would never give up this is Kali Yuga. People are not really very... But the main point in this purport is what Prabhupada is saying here, that the protection, yes, a king, even if he's a coward, the Kshatriya surrenders to him. Normally that would never happen, they'll fight to the death. But Kali is not really, as he has his role, as we said yesterday, or we heard yesterday. He has a specific role in the Lord's plan. He has to act accordingly. And this particular part of this role, he's surrendering to Parikshit Maharaj. He's surrendering. Normally, if he was a Kshatriya, he would have fought, even if he was enemy, demoniac. But as, in one sense, you could say he's enemy of the state. His nefarious activities are certainly inimical to the process of religion, but he has his role to play. So just like in this modern system, even a murderer is put in the prison, he's given some place to reside. He's not put to death. Whether he surrenders or not, usually they don't. Well, they may, but they may not surrender in their heart. They're still, you could say, inimical in their hearts towards the law. But in this particular case, he's surrendering to Parikshit Maharaj, and he's begging for a place to stay. More or less, Parikshit Maharaj put him in prison. More or less. He controlled him, just like we have to try to control our senses. He controlled Kali, as we'll see in the following verses. He gave him places to stay, but completely under control, so that he could not misuse his abilities. In devotional service, this was an important principle, to control our senses. They're very wild. They do have a tendency to be misplaced, to wander, to be attracted to all kinds of mundane objects, to try to exploit those objects, sometimes in various ways according to the modes of nature. But a devotee has to learn and practice bringing those senses under control. But the main point mentioned here, the Lord protects the surrendered souls. And how does he protect? Here, Prabhupada says, from all sins and the resultant reactions of sinful activity. And of course, this is the conclusive, practically speaking, the conclusive statement of Bhagavad Gita. Savadhamam pratyajya, mamekam sharanam praja. Krishna promises that protection, no matter how sinful we are. How sinful. Doesn't matter how sinful we are, whether we're Magari the hunter, or Jagaya and Madai, whoever we are, whatever our past is, if one genuinely surrenders, Krishna will give protection. This is the real protection. Physically speaking, Dharma is often quite complex in what to do with a person who is genuinely surrendered, even though he's, from the material point of view, administration. How is he dealt with? That's another topic altogether. In this case, Kali was actually, was not killed. Parikshit Maharaj was ready to physically kill him, but he didn't. In the case of Rukmi, Krishna also, it said that practically it was as good as killing him. He humiliated him, cutting off parts of his hair and so on and so forth. In other cases, it wasn't exactly the Rukmi surrendered even, but for other reasons Krishna didn't kill him. Shishupal, he certainly killed him, but he forgave him for a long time, you could say, or at least he didn't kill him or punish him. Every situation has its unique aspect, but the general principle, of course, is an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth, as said in the Bible, that a sinner should be punished accordingly. Why? For two reasons. One, for the benefit of the public, to protect them, and two, for the benefit of the aggressor, to release them from their sinful reactions. So here we see release from sinful reactions. So it's the king's job also to act in such a way as to help release the living entity from sinful reactions. And also to free them not just from the sinful, immediate sinful reaction, but from the tendency to sin. The tendency to be, as we heard last night, this word sin, to be basically separated from, apart from, to act apart from. Ancient German word, sin. Probably goes back way beyond that, but that's the word which was quoted last night. So, to reconnect in a mundane way to the law, to rectify people's mentality so they start to abide by the law. But the protection of Krishna is a little different. It's a material protection, but the spiritual protection, the real one, is to reconnect. Our present mentality is independent, separate from the will of the Lord. We're trying to enjoy separately. So the real protection is to help us to act or live our lives, to live our lives in favor or in relationship with the will of Krishna. And that's what Krishna gives here. If we surrendered unto him, even though we may be very sinful in terms of our past, then Krishna, generally speaking, yesham tvantigatam papam janam punya karma, one has to be from previous lifetimes, pious in this lifetime, free to one's sinful reactions. Then one can engage in devotional service with determination. But if one generally surrenders, Prabhupada said that one devotee asked Srila Prabhupada, but I have no piety, Srila Prabhupada. Even now I'm still full of all kinds of whatever, material desires or whatever. I have no qualification to engage in service. Prabhupada said, I've created your piety. I've given you this opportunity. So this golden opportunity given, Lord Krishna says, surrender unto me. Lord Chaitanya is even more merciful. Even if you don't surrender, he still gives Krishna consciousness. Opportunity at least. Has to take it. But he gives the opportunity. Devotees also. They go into the world and distribute Krishna consciousness to persons who are inimical, persons who are very sinful, and every kind of conditioning in the material sense that you can think of. So the devotees go in there into this world and preach the message of Krishna consciousness to the living entities. Even though they're not surrendering, the devotees do all they can to even trick them or whatever it may be, to bring them to this point of surrender. Of surrendering, giving up our independence, our false concept of I'm the desire, I'm the enjoyer, I'm the owner, the controller, and so on, which is more or less all pervasive in the material world. That's the surrender. Surrender unto me. As they surrender unto me, I reward them accordingly. So it's step by step, no doubt. But if someone else of living entity gets that little opportunity to see the Harinam party, to meet a devotee, to receive a book, to give a donation, to get prasadam, whatever it may be, but something which has a connection with Krishna, conscious connection, that it is a step, Gata Sakriti, a step towards surrender. From that moment on, Krishna takes, we'll say, a special interest in that person. It's remarkable how in this Lord Chaitanya's mercy, this is made possible. There's no conscious desire to surrender to Krishna. It's the kindness, the will of the devotee makes this possible for the living entity. Just give a penny. Even if they don't, Prabhupada said, if they just touch the book, if they just see the Harinam, they see a devotee, and it reminds them something or another, something related to Krishna, even if they don't. If they just see that picture of a devotee walking on the street, may come up in the future. When their time of death comes, that picture will be amongst many of the pictures. And they'll definitely get a chance again to associate with devotees. This is the Lord's mercy that is never lost. That little tiny connection is never lost, even if they do neha vikramo nasho stipatavayana vidite. It's never lost. Even a small amount of advancement can save one from falling into the whirlpool of birth and death, lower species. So important it is that devotees give association. We heard last night from Amarendra Prabhu, but we hear it all the time, but the two aspects must be there. We have to purify ourselves, but we also have to distribute this message to others. Both must go on. Otherwise, we will not have neither the determination, anyway, to carry on preaching, neither the mercy or the empowerment, neither the purification to have much effect in our efforts to connect others to Krishna. The heart has to be, we have to be connected. If the socket itself is not, the plug is not connected properly to the socket, there's some interference, and what type of energy will come out from the unit? Next to nothing, if any, or broken. Not very impressive. We have to be connected to the socket, and then properly connected, without interference. Then one can be an instrument for the protection, the mercy of the Lord. One of the symptoms of surrender, the devotee always expecting. He has no other expectation, whatever way. The devotee doesn't, expectation of protection is not conditional, by the way. It's not like, protection means you're going to protect me this way and this way, Krishna, otherwise. No, a devotee understands whatever happens is Krishna's protection. Even if we're put in hell, a devotee sees that as another form of Krishna's protection. He's always, and even in hell, a devotee of that mentality will feel the presence of Krishna. The protection is the feel. I remember one time I was in a studio, a television program in London, and a long time ago. It was a panel event where there was this panel of basically atheists challenging religion. And they were calling up various religious persons, so-called, and challenging their beliefs. It was quite I don't know whether it was I don't know if it was a sort of a kind of a setup or what, I don't know. why and how it happened, but we weren't called up. We were invited, but they never called us for some reason. But they called up this one Christian lady, and she was in a wheelchair. She had terminal cancer. They challenged her, "Where's your Jesus? He's not protecting you." You say Jesus saves, Jesus protects, but you're dying. Some of them were doctors, and you come to us, maybe we can protect you. Same thing probably used in the communist era, same example. While your God is not providing bread, you come to us, we'll provide bread. Because they'd already hoarded all the bread in big warehouses. So they're waiting for people to come. And when they came, "Here, take bread. You were better than your God." Simple people may buy it. They may see that. Where on earth did they get the bread from in the first place? They got it from God. They're thieves. Anyway, this is Kali Yuga, cheating propensities there. But anyway, they challenged this lady, and she said, "Well, my Lord is protecting me." They said, "How is he protecting you? Look at you. You're dying." I said, No. He's protecting me in my heart. I have no fear. I'm not afraid. I feel his presence. Quite conscious person, quite advanced, you could say, in her path of devotion. But that in the heart. Devotional service is not a conditional thing. We don't impose those conditions on the Lord. The less we impose conditions, the more the Lord reveals himself. The more one will feel his presence. If we're expecting rewards, if we're expecting a certain kind of reciprocation, then we'll get what we, you can say, as they surrender unto me, we'll get what we deserve. We won't become free of fear. We're certain, as Krishna says in the 18th chapter, become fearless. Sarvadharma pratimamikam. The one becomes free of fear. Have no fear, Krishna says. This fear. Krishna takes away all fear. For a pure devotee, there's nothing to fear. He sees Krishna everywhere. He feels Krishna's hand working in everything. There's nothing to fear. Always feeling the protection of the Lord. No matter what. Just like Ambarish Maharaj, when he was attacked by the fiery demon created by Devasa Muni, he was not afraid. He simply took shelter of the Lord. Sure, he started to, you could say, blame himself for the inconvenience that was caused to Devasa. But he had no fear of his own. He had no fear. Prahlad Maharaj was fearless. He saw Krishna everywhere. When we're conscious of Krishna, then there's no more fear. That's the real protection. It's not a conditional thing. Protection is a when we're actually in the lap of the Lord. It's nice that the Brajaras are very enthusiastic, but it'd be nice if it could be their enthusiasm could be a little quieter. So we're all searching for that protection. We're just looking in the wrong place. Dehapatya kalkadishu atmasanyasa satsapya. We're looking in the wrong place. Can you be quiet, please? Thank you. We're looking in the wrong place. We're taking shelter in the wrong place. People take shelter in the fallible soldiers. Atmasanyas, sannyas is soldiers. They take shelter in the fallible soldiers of this world. They take shelter of their own minds, their senses, their family, society, medicine, education, the army, the scientists, false religion. They take shelter in so many ways. Everybody needs shelter. We cannot exist otherwise. The earth is giving us shelter, we exploit it. Of course, ultimately Krishna is giving everyone shelter in one way or another, be it in the prison house of this world or in transcendental loving reciprocation. Everyone's getting his shelter, directly or indirectly. But we're not seeing that. We're seeing it separate from Krishna. That's the sin. To see something separate from Krishna is a sin. It's not a question of, oh, I'm using it nicely. I'm a nice person, I'm trying to do welfare work. But it's a sin if we see it separate from Krishna. When Bali Maharaj surrendered the universe to Vamanadev, his wife Indiyavali chastised him, "You fool. You're still an agnostic fool." Of course, there's different angles of this and different reasons for this example, but she chastised her husband, and you're still thinking that you have something to give. You're proud of that. You fulfilled your promise to give 3 steps of land. When will you realize that nothing ever belonged to you in the first place? The real sin is to think that something belongs to me. That something is separate from Krishna. That is the real illusion. That is what we have to be protected from. Not protected from the so-called dangers of this world. The dangers are when I see it in relationship with Krishna. Then fear comes in. Attachment, discrimination, offense, everything comes as a consequence. When we see everything and everybody, even what we normally term an enemy, the devotee has no enemy, but nonetheless, sometimes people act in such a way. Related to Krishna, there's no more fear. Nothing to fear. And the devotee always acts in such a way. We're talking of a realized devotee, of course. The protection is the more we put ourselves under the shelter of such a realized devotee, the more protection the practicing devotee will experience. He will never fear any situation, be it death, be it disease, be it old age, whatever it may be. Be it somebody who's threatening one, physically, mentally, philosophically, whatever it is, because the devotee is taking shelter of Krishna. Like a child takes shelter of its father, doesn't have anything to be afraid of. Even if the father is not capable, still the child thinks like that. Everyone needs shelter. Everyone needs a place. Everyone has a place. We're just looking in the wrong place right now. And there's no shelter in this world. The only real shelter is in our relationship with Krishna. We should always try to keep that relationship there. Prabhupada's emphasized that our only prayer should be, "My dear Lord Krishna, you are sitting in my heart as the Super Soul. You can remind me to chant or cause me to forget. Please, please, always remind me to chant your holy name. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama." We're praying to Krishna's reminder. We have no capacity to remember. One devotee was telling me Saturday that they had this worst fever, this heaviest fever they've ever had in their life. They had pneumonia. And they were hallucinating. And they were so afraid. Not so much during the hallucinations, but afterwards, because they realized they were not thinking of Krishna. Krishna didn't come into the picture. Scary. They were scared. Of course, this may be seen as a test for us neophytes. Try to make more serious endeavor to be conscious of Krishna. He'll give you protection. if we try, if we take the opportunity. He'll give protection no matter what, but it may not be quite what we hope it is. We have to make our effort. We have to make an effort to take that protection, to take that shelter of chanting the holy name. It's not just a mechanical process. We need to become a little conscious. The mechanical process is also on the way, but it's not the goal. It's a stepping stone. You don't get the degree after 1 month in the university. You have to complete the course. So we have to make effort ourselves to also take shelter of the holy name, take shelter of devotional service, take shelter of the pure devotees of the Lord, take shelter of the Shastra, and not our minds or the Atmasanyasa Satsapita, shelters of this material world, thinking that will protect me, that will satisfy me. And sometimes the mind thinks like that. This is too difficult. Let me just merge back in the material world and just be a part of the whatever. Madness. No, this is surrender. And then when the devotee hopefully realizes there's no real shelter in the material world. There's not really any shelter there. Everyone is destined to die and suffer. You can't avoid it, even if you're an atheist. Whatever religious doctrine one so-called believes in, same things happen. It's a matter of our consciousness, not the situation. It's not a question of adjusting the situation like a Hiranyakashipu or something so that you have no more need to fear anything. Nobody can do that in the material world. There is no such situation, it doesn't exist. Even Lord Brahma has to leave his body at a certain point of time. There is nothing in this material world which we can claim as our own. Everything will be taken away in due course of time. The only thing we can claim as our own is our relationship with Krishna. We have to try to cultivate that relationship by taking shelter of the holy name, taking shelter of the lotus feet of Krishna, which means to follow, taking shelter of the instructions of the spiritual master, the instructions of Shastra, the instructions of Sadhu. That's taking shelter of the lotus feet. Those instructions, the dust of the Lord's lotus feet appears in the form of pure devotees. And they give that shelter by giving their instructions. And if we take shelter of those instructions, we're being protected at the lotus feet of the Lord. That's the only safe boat across this ocean of material existence. No other shelter. Every other shelter is described by Prahlad Maharaj like a stone boat. What's the use of getting in a stone boat? It's going to sink. Even if it is the Titanic, it still sank. Nothing is infallible in this world. We have to take shelter of the infallible Lord. Everything else is fallible soldiers. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So you have to move along. And we have a journey today. We have to leave at 9:45 for the airport. And thank you very much. You've been ecstatically tired the whole time we've been here. What to do? One day we'll be tired of the material world. Not just tired within it, but tired of it. And we'll take shelter of Krishna. Completely take shelter. That's the goal of our sadhana, at least. And it can be taken further. It sounds a little bit like not such a loving situation, but that's the stage we must come to full surrender to Krishna. And whatever comes afterwards is another topic, you could say. The surrender to Krishna means a different thing in one sense. Simply means one has no other existence except for fulfilling the will of Krishna. We exist simply for his pleasure. So we're practicing that right now. We're practicing that, try to mold our lives in a way which is pleasing to Krishna. Regulated principles, preaching Krishna consciousness, only honoring Krishna prasadam, not indulging ourselves in sense gratification, separate from Krishna consciousness, worshipping the deity, dressing in the way that he would like to be, as much as we've understood, and so on. Not reading literature which is not connected to devotional service unless it's part of our occupation in the material world, of course. Otherwise there's no need. No need. Not just for, oh, it's interesting. This is one of, I guess everyone has this tendency, something which we're interested in, some tendency is there to, to indulge in it sometimes. But it's not favorable. It may not be seen as grossly sinful, but it is still, because it's not really connected to fulfilling or pleasing Krishna. Just having that knowledge. Unless it's necessarily used in Krishna service. So taking shelter of Krishna means everything for Krishna. Doesn't mean taking shelter of Krishna, now give me what I want. It means taking shelter of Krishna as well. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama. Okay, I've got to get along. I've got to pack our bags. I've got to honor prasadam, say farewell, and move along. And let's see what happens next in Krishna's plan. So stay here, the word is mentioned. Sthanam. Shreshta Sthanam. Sthanam means place, sometimes it means steady, fixed. The more we can be steady in our service, the more we can be dedicated. Sometimes it's not something materially which we necessarily are inclined towards. We may not be ready for that. But ultimately we have to be willing in the process of sadhana to accept things or situations which we may not be materially speaking so inclined towards. But we surrender. And Krishna gives protection. I remember one time on Sankirtan, we called it Sankirtan. We were traveling, the big story, selling records. Devotion. They were devotional at that time even. But we were selling records. Basically speaking, that was all we were doing. Minimum sadhana. Minimum. It was an emergency situation here. Back in the mid-70s. It wasn't something which I really did not like. It was something I really did not like doing. Materially speaking, even from my limited spiritual perception, I was not very inspired by this. Materially, it was something I really didn't like doing. You couldn't mention Krishna's name. You couldn't preach Krishna philosophy. You had to somehow, by hook or by crook, sell a record to a person. And we didn't even give a book. We sold the record by hook or by crook, but we didn't even give a book. So I didn't like this very much. And I didn't know what to do. I felt like saying goodbye and trying to hitchhike my way to India to escape from the situation here. And I thought, well, one day, somehow or another, Krishna was merciful. He's always merciful, but he reminded me of his being merciful. And I had a realization that Krishna is the controller, not somebody else. Krishna is the supreme controller. Nothing works. Nothing moves without the will of the Lord. There must be a divine plan going on here. Why is Krishna allowing this? Why am I in this position? Why am I thinking the way I'm thinking? There's something very special behind all this. So I thought, Krishna, and then again he was very merciful. He reminded me that actually we're here to please him. We're not here to please ourselves. We don't even know who we are anyway. We think with this body, so what is that pleasing oneself? Our likes and dislikes are based wholly and solely on our conditioned state, not our constitutional one. And what we like in this world and what we don't like is based upon our karma, our condition. It's not that we really like it or really don't like it. Different thoughts were coming in my mind which seemed to make sense based on scriptural directives. And then the final one was, Krishna, if this is what you want me to do, if this is really what you want me to do, then please give me the strength to do it. I'm willing to surrender forever if this is what you want me to do. A bit of a bold thought, you could say. But at that moment I was thinking like that. I wouldn't say I thought like that all the time, but at that moment that thought came. And that kind of an inner prayer, maybe, I don't know if you call it a prayer, but an appeal at least. I haven't got the strength, I haven't got the will, I haven't got the desire, I haven't got the ability. I can't carry on unless you give me the strength. If this is your will, then may it become my will. A very neophyte stage of devotion, but something in regards to stana. One's place, one's staying where one is, surrendering to Krishna, and seeing what Krishna does next. I wasn't thinking what Krishna's doing next. I was thinking, okay, if this is it, so be it. And the next day on going out, we were in Birmingham, I remember. We went out the next day trying to sell records. I didn't do any better, by the way. My scores were moderate, nothing spectacular, nothing too bad, as usual. We worked hard. And somehow or another, some people would buy the records. My consciousness was completely different. Instead of fighting against it, I just accepted what do you want? What is what you want, Krishna? I'm just your instrument. I tried to remember that. And the day was actually quite blissful, even though we had no class, no kirtan, just 1 hour for chanting japa. We never wore dhoti for weeks on end. We only ate bread and milk. Bread from the shop and milk from obviously, of course, from the shop. And sometimes some marzipan, if you know what that is. It's a mixture of ground down almonds and sugar. That was our daily fare. We had no time to think about other things. We had to sell records and make money. Not exactly a very Krishna consciousness program. Certainly wouldn't have joined if that was what it was. But anyway, it was a good lesson. And it was a good experience in itself. Although at the time, up to that moment, it wasn't a good experience. It was a good experience. I guess it was a step of surrender, if you want to call it that. So then the next week or something later, we went back to the temple, the Bhaktivedanta Manor, and our GBC came up to me. He happened to be there. The GBCs in those days were very, very much a part of what was going on. Even coming out on Sankirtan sometimes, but they knew it was small, not many devotees, there was no congregation hardly. They knew every devotee, they were very much, you get talk to them, they would know what you were doing, whether it was right for you. They were very much involved in what was going on. They weren't like aloof. They were active people. So he came up to me and he said, Janananda Prabhu, I'm really sorry, but we're going to have to ask you to please stop going out selling records. We want you to do this service in the temple. I didn't say anything, I just said, as you wish. and stayed back. And it was exactly the service I wanted to do, from my conditional point of view, you could say. I could see how Krishna's hand works. We're not very advanced, but still he satisfies that, perhaps slightly conditional need, and in wonderful ways to teach us lessons, instead of spending our life trying to adjust everything for my pleasure, the way I feel, the way I like it. That is a never-ending process. It is not a never-ending process, it just takes a long time before we come to our senses and accept the will of Krishna. That's the protection. Give up all other forms of protection and surrender unto me, Krishna says. Don't surrender unto my material energy or something short of the mark, or impersonal Brahman, or Buddhism, or some material religious process. Namitika Dharma. Surrender unto me means giving up all independent desires and just taking shelter of the will of Krishna. It takes time, sometimes we have to go through a few lessons. This is taking complete shelter. And then everything really begins at that point. And we know that from the conversation of Ramananda Roy with Lord Chaitanya. It's only when Ramananda came to that verse, what was that? Jnane prayasa mudapasta manta evam. And we stay where we are, Ramananda Roy. You don't have to go anywhere. Stay where you are. Lord Chaitanya rejected everything else, right up varnashrams. Even he rejected Sarvadharma practically. That's okay. That's all part of it. But it's still external. It's still external. Go further. Okay, don't try to adjust everything. Stay where you are and just absorb yourself in the right association, hearing and chanting about Krishna. This is the turning point. Not a question of externals. We tend to see the externals as the answer. The people we're with, of course it's important. We don't deny that, but ultimately it's not. You can be in hell, you can be anywhere if you're actually surrendering to Krishna. Taking shelter of Krishna. And everything, and realizing everything has the hand of Krishna working behind it. Giving up all other shelters. Taking complete, so hearing that right message and the right association, everything else is preparing us, you could say, for that. So then suddenly or another the heart changes. Instead of looking from our own perspective, how I see the world, how I feel, etc., but seeing how Krishna feels, from Krishna's perspective. Seen through the eyes of Shastra, seen through the eyes of Guru and Sadhu. What about Krishna? It's always about, well, what about me? What about Krishna? How does he feel? Would he like it? Would this be pleasing to Krishna, the way I'm doing it? The way I'm living my life? The way I'm talking? The way I'm doing this and that? That change, that transformation is required. Just takes time, association, of course, application, patience, enthusiasm, and mercy. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama. The Bhadra campaign is upon us. The Bhadra campaign is round the corner. When is it? Well, it's already on, but when is the Bhadra Purnima? 18th of September. Is that right? That's not even 10, that's only 10 days, not even 10 days away, isn't it? Is that right? 10 days. Yesterday, 20 devotees sponsored sets. It's nice. I don't know what more you can do at this point of time, but it'd be nice if we do some more sets of Bhagavatams here. I don't see much notices around about it. Maybe there's something. Pardon?
There's one woman
Where?
next to the Burlington terminal.
A big sign?
Can't think what.
Maybe next year a little bit more effort to be conscious of it. It starts on Gaur Purnima. It doesn't start in the middle of, the beginning of September. It starts on Gaur Purnima. You could be more conscious of it. And put up some nice reminders, newsletters. We're not doing as much this year as we did last, but we sent several newsletters out amongst our community. We haven't got much going on, but 5 devotees at the moment are working pretty much full time on it. We can't do much in France compared to what you can do here. We have not much, don't have such a field like you do. But sponsoring is nice, but distributing it to people who haven't, is another thing, isn't it? They used to distribute sets of Bhagavatams. In Atlanta, Mahotsav, of course, and his team, they distribute sets of Bhagavatams on the street, basically. America is different, you could say, but still they do it. It's following up, cultivating people, preaching, then following up afterwards, of course, as well. Let's see how we can distribute more of Prabhupada's Bhagavatam sets. What do you think? Next year. This year is a little late now to start getting in gear, but you can still do it. I don't know. I don't know what you got on what you can do here in the UK, but I'm sure you can. Where there's a will, there's a way. Krishna will give the way. Jai Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Grantaraya Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.